weeks ago, President Obama welcomed China's Xi Jinping to the United States for his first state visit as president. It was an opportunity for the administration to make inroads with Mr. Xi on concerns of areas of mutual interest, as well as to address areas of serious concern. I joined my ranking members of the Foreign Affairs Committee and the House at large wrote President Obama a letter urging direct communication on a few especially troubling issues. As we review the state visit with our distinguished panel, I hope to learn more about how receptive the administration was to these concerns and what challenges outside of these major obstacles remain. Since President Xi's ascension, China's newfound assertiveness has generated some distressing policy developments. For instance, over the years, China's cyber economic espionage has become a significant irritant in U.S.-China relations. It was clear that progress on cybersecurity relations was a priority for our administration, and we are supportive that both countries agreed neither country's government will conduct or knowingly support cyber-enabled theft of intellectual property to benefit their economies. This agreement is a positive and necessary step, but it's not sufficient. China still refuses to acknowledge its role in these attacks, despite evidence that clearly points to the contrary. It is my hope that our administration holds guilty actors accountable through punitive actions such as cyber sanctions, takes steps to deter future incidents of malicious cyber espionage, and improves our own cyber defense against these kinds of threats. Congress, too, will be watching this very closely. In the months leading up to the visit, the business community expressed serious concerns about China's growing protectionism. China's national security reforms, some of which have already been codified into law, could force U.S. businesses and institutions out of China's market through forced technology transfers, while other provisions would block both trade associations and humanitarian NGOs on national security grounds. President Xi has promised to use the review only for bona fide security reasons, but China defines national security much more broadly than the U.S. does, and the process itself is fundamentally opaque, creating serious risk for abuse and few avenues to appeal harmful actions by the Chinese government. Increased state intervention in the recent stock market troubles and currency exchange rates also breaches China's commitments to let market forces play a decisive role in its economy. China's aggression in the South China Sea has been a long-standing concern for this subcommittee, one which is shared throughout the government and civil society. I appreciate that the administration continues to raise the issue with their Chinese counterparts, but President Xi's position on China's illegal maritime claims did not budge during the visit. President Xi mentioned that China does not intend to pursue militarization, and I know we will hold him accountable for this. There was no noticeable progress on worsening human rights conditions in China. President Xi noted that countries have different historical processes and realities to justify its poor record on human rights. That's not an excuse, and I'll work to ensure that human rights play a larger role in foreign policy decisions. I understand what China's doing here. China, benefiting from decades of central planning geared towards economic growth, is slowing down. Laden with increasing demands from a new middle class, the country is at risk of political, economic, and even military unrest. China is trying to divert crisis through assertive domestic and foreign policies, but often the actions that we see are not reflective of a responsible international player, if that's what China wants to be. The visit also yielded pledges that the U.S. and China would boost cooperation on various multilateral issues, including nuclear security, wildlife trafficking and conservation, which are welcome developments. I'm concerned about the climate deal, however, which signs U.S. businesses up to strictly adhere to environmental standards, while China is not obligated to implement any reforms at all until 2030. Encouraging the use of responsible and clean energy technology is understandable and laudable, but I remain concerned and frustrated that the Obama administration continues to use climate politics to put U.S. businesses at a competitive disadvantage and impose burdensome costs on U.S. families, all in the hopes that 15 years from now, China will live up to a non-binding agreement they make today. I hope to hear from our distinguished panel about their impressions of the visit and what it portends for the future on our bilateral relationship. I support China's integration with the international community. China has a lot to offer, and their leadership on a number of quarrelsome issues facing the global community, like an unstable and belligerent North Korea, is welcome. I hope that our government continues to engage China, but also holds it accountable to being the responsible actor it portrays itself to be.